Alright, so we are going to start off by taking a bit of step back and talking about two very high level everything general questions that are pretty central to everything this course is about, and they are: first off, what is database? Seems like a pretty straightforward questions, but there is a little bit of terminology you need to discuss. And then secondly, why do they matter? So let's start off with the step of first one. What is a database? What actually makes something database? And there are a couple of definitions that we could go with there. I kind of synthesize some of them into my own definition that are: the first part is that is a collection of data, which seems pretty straightforward. There are all sorts of collections of data around us in the real world, things like when you go to your doctor's office and there's a filling cabinet full of medical records, or even just that a to-do list or a list of things to buy at the grocery store qualifies as a collection of data. Or going back a little, if you remember what a Rolex is, a world of Rolex is full of different people's contact information that qualifies as a database under this definition. Speaking Arabic technology like a Rolodex, another example of database is a phone book. So I say this mainly jokingly, but I actually have some siblings who don't what phone book is. They have never seen one or used one before. If a kinetic word, basically that you look up people's phone numbers based off their name. So first, usually organized by last name alphabetically for people. So you would look through the book until you find someone's the first name, and then you find the last name. So let's take a quick example here. There is a functional phone book. Think of it as just a little section of a phone book that has tens of thousands of entries, and then our fictional characters alphabetically organized by their last name. So our Grace Andrews comes in by Betty Cooper, who comes before Ned Flanders, and so on. And then we have corresponding phone numbers. So imagine if you have a gigantic phone number with this information in it, and I ask you to do something like find Ned Flanders' phone book phone number. Well, it's actually pretty straightforward. As long as you are comfortable using the alphabet in alphabetical order, you look through the phone book until you find it of FF, and I saw until you find Ned Flanders. His phone number. It's what the phone book is made for. However, it's get a little trickier or a lot trickier. It's clear if I ask you to do something like find everyone in the phone book who has first name Ned. There isn't easy way to do this. You basically would have to go through every entry in the book and check for how many thousands there. Certain person's name. So I have a couple of other sections that are similar difficult. So the point here is just we required all the phone numbers with a particular area code, or to find all people who have three letters first name is not easy, and it would take a lot of time, like a ton of time. So that brings us to the next component of the definition of what makes something a database. In my opinion, which is not just a collection of data, it also contains a method for accessing and manipulating that data. It also contains, so going back to the phone book, we could want a way, some sort of program or code that allow us to do something like everybody with the first name Ned, or find all people who have the three-letter first name, or even do things like add a new person into the phone book, or change area codes, or change phone numbers, or get crazy things and just delete people from our phone book, or delete do we have some sort of programs or code as part of the database that would help with that, allow us to interface with the data. So I did say we are going through the divide a little bit into the program. I usually try to stay away and from it early on while I try early on this course. Basically, if you read about database, if you have missed one before you have read a blogspot post, then you miss some cross-related database management system or related database management, a DBMS or DBDNS, all these different acronyms. Basically, this right here that I have on the screen, database versus database management system, refers to the fact that I just talked about say having data collection of data and then having an interface for that data are two different things. So let me show you a quick example. Imagine that you have an application Let's say it's a dating app, and then you have a database, and you are storing all sorts of information, all the different users, all the different messages that have been sent, the photos, whatever else goes into your dating app, but on its own. The database here is basically our phone book. It's a gigantic collection of data which is great for storing data, but it really doesn't do very much. You can almost think of it was a gigantic file on your computer. So for your application to be able to do things like update somebody's username in that database, or edit their profile photos, or delete a user if they want to leave our application, whatever it is, there is a database management systems that allows us to interface with that database. So we just have code to the program that does the talking to our database for us. Okay, so for the most part of your weeds with the jargon, there are reasons I brought for this through oftentimes when people talk about a database, the reason I brought here from referring to both of these things, database management system and database together, just a database. So what I have write is a list of some of the more common database you will run into, and actually I just into the where I was just talking about four things: PostgreSQL, MySQL, Oracle, and SQL. There is not technically database; they're actually database management systems. But for the most part, people just call them databases. So when we call these things like my as well as one of the most commonly used database is actually the most commonly used database management systems. So it's not the end of the world. You forget about the. It's important because understand later on when we actually start about talking about a SQL, when we start talking about the sum of the database, the code that you are right to interact with the database. I think it will help understand what you are going, and that you are management systems which help goes and give commands to the actual data itself or to the database itself. Okay, so to wrap everything up here, a little bit of a synthesized definition. What is database? Well, it's a structured set of computerized data with an accessible interface.